Hello again, everyone. Ambassador Terry, along with the illustrious Linda, and our special guest, Ashok Bhattacharya, who we're going to hear from in just a moment. And today we're going to talk a little bit about empathy and how that affects a lot of different people out there. And of course, we have John Chapelier with us, and the famous Jenny Langren is with us today. And this is just going to be great. Ashok, thank you for coming and talking about empathy today. I know it's a big part of what you do.
Thank you so much, everybody, for having me, especially Ambassador for inviting me again. For me, it's not just a part of what I do, it's a part of who I am. And I think empathy needs boundaries as well, but it's my investigatory tool in my practice as a psychiatrist. And it's my practice in my marriage and with my children and with my friends. So I sort of practice it as soon as I'm awake.
Nice. I love it. Well, John Chapelier, you know about that one, huh?
Yes, yes, I do. And I apologize, Ashok. Earlier we were talking about, and I forgot about empathy and went with gratitude of it because it was in my thought process. But empathy for me is a critically important component of leadership. Just because if we can't really understand where someone is coming from and relate to that, then we're not going to be able to create a sense of connection. We're not going to be able to create this engagement that everybody's searching for in today's business world. Because if you leave out the emotional connection, you leave out the ability to create an engaged workforce. And so it's, for me, I used to joke about empathetic detachment, because which is, I find a friend of mine actually who was a psychiatrist told me if he didn't practice that, he would be looking for, a rafter and a rope by the end of the day, because you can't just keep listening and take all these issues. These are not my issues. These are your issues, but I would be happy to share that with you and help you find a way through it. But they stay as your issues and not mine.
Yeah. And John, you ran into kind of the opposite of what your journey was when you were with teachers and nurses, and they were burning out because they were taking that on compassion,
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So,
absolutely. I just had a call from a Royal Clinic in the Middle East about the same thing, because I said, well, tell me what your issues are and I'll see if I can sort of design something that may help solve that problem. And that was right, it's right up at the top of the list. It's burnout, a lack of connection, a lack of, they're too busy to practice anything that's empathetic. It's everything has become transactional. I'll give you this, you give me that, I'll give you this, you give me that. And of course, what's happening is the people, the efficiency looks really good, but eventually it will just crash and burn like anything else that doesn't get, if it doesn't get the oil of empathy and connection, the engine will definitely seize up and stop.
Right. And so the nurses, it's all about everybody else. And for you, your journey, it was all about you. You want to speak to that a little bit?
Well, I'll let it sort of come up as we go through the talk.
Yeah, that sounds really good.
Jenny?
I love having Ashok here, and I love that you bring up boundaries, Ashok, because my view on empathy, or my way of living it, has evolved. I'd say it has healed over the years. I've been part of that toxic duo of narcissist empath. So I know where it leans into sympathy, and I know many, many years when feeling with someone else ended up me losing myself and not recognizing where I was and where that other person began. And it's been important for me not to go into the other ditch and react to that, but actually heal and recognize that for me, empathy is also including myself. When I am also empathetic with myself, it means that there are boundaries. And it means that I stay on my side of the fence and I'm actually able to support, recognizing that I still have the perspective. So in my counseling and in my coaching, sitting with people who feel like they're lost, I'm able to share that experience with them. I'm also able to access my understanding and my knowledge and the experience that I've been through myself to really support them in a way that serves them and, doesn't mean that I enter their world and become their savior. It actually serves them to be their own saviors and to grow. So that's been my own experience and journey. Anything?
Thank you for saying that, Jenny. I want to make a general point, and I do not want to make this too complex from a point of view, but I have to mention the word narcissism. And the reason I mentioned it, because narcissism is actually a lack of empathy. And one of the problems that people who are hyper empathic, like myself, maybe John and Linda and Ambassador and Jenny, is that we kind of attract these kinds of people who, once they find us, they kind of come closer and closer to us. And next thing we know, they've got us in their teeth. And I just because I'm empathic doesn't mean I have to be 100% empathic all the time. When someone comes to see me, I don't think I have to fix them. I think I have to empathize with them. And my favorite analogy is this. If I go see a movie, like let's say it's a 90-minute movie, when I'm in the movie, I'm in that movie. And when I come out of it, it's like I have to reorient myself back. Oh, I have my life. I was in that movie. And I can think about it. So when we're empathizing with someone, we're with them in their movie for that moment of time, right? We don't want to get stuck in their teeth, right? That's really important. And if you're very empathic, there's this tendency to want to fix and help and be compassionate and kind, and that's where we can get stuck. So as much as I practice empathy, I also practice my boundaries for empathy. And Jenny said something so lovely that we have to practice self-empathy, which means checking in with yourself. And if you're not checking in with yourself, you're that lifeguard who jumps in the water and gets drowned. So you have to secure your own rescue first before you jump in the water and do that kind of stuff. And I'll leave it there for now.
Thank you. I'd love to add that it's also been part of this journey to reframe. And I'm sure that's work that you do with your clients, that you choose your filter and you choose what you call things. And I used to think that establishing those healthy boundaries, I was not myself or that it was unkind. So a reframing for me has been that it is respectful for myself and that other person to call matters by their true name. And it is loving to allow people to own their own situations and grow with their own situations and evolve and learn from them. So thank you, Ashok. Just wanted to put that in there.
Just to add, and I'll let John speak in a minute, but just to add, it's about being authentic. You can tell when you're in a conversation with someone if you feel you can be authentic with that person. My task is to help people feel that way with themselves, in conversation with me, and ultimately with the people they care about. John, can you please help us here?
No, I can't. The thing about authenticity, and this is interesting because when I first got into business and the business was getting successful, I started getting asked to serve on a lot of nonprofit boards. And I would show up in these, and this is like you were talking about with the people in the area, sort of this, I'm better than you are kind of thing, because I'm on this board of directors. And I just kind of showed up like me, a little smart assy, a little quippy kind of thing. And everybody kept looking around going, well, we never had this much fun at a board meeting before. It was never this enjoyable. And the reason is because people finally let some of that facade down of, presumptive egalitarianism. It's just, we're all the same here. I appreciate the fact that you can afford to buy a plane ticket that allows the little curtain to be pulled between us, but when they pull the curtain, it doesn't make you better on that side of the curtain. It just makes you might be better off, but you're not better than. And so, it's one of those things where people tend to get sort of, what did I used to say about some of that behavior? They were, they were sealed in this little bubble of their own sense of self-worth, and then it was supported by everybody else that they knew that also acted in the same fashion. And if you don't sort of connect with realism every once in a while and sort of go, oh yes, what I'm thinking here is completely wrong. But most people don't say that to themselves. They have to sort of, this is where Linda was talking earlier, gift of devastation is what I talk about, which is when you get that whack upside the head that forces you to change your behavior. It doesn't require that, but most human beings require some sort of pain to make a change that sticks. I mean, everybody makes New Year's resolutions, but by March, they're kind of gone. So what makes the difference between a life change and a New Year's resolution is something has caused you enough pain to be worthy of the uncomfortable new behavior that you have to go through to get into this new habit. And I can't tell you how many new gifts of devastation I've had in my life, way too many. But it's forced me. Initially, it was forced me, and then now I welcome change, and I welcome the new behavior, because every time I make a change, no matter what I was thinking before, every time I make a change and something that was uncomfortable before I start doing it, it ends up being beneficial to me. But in the beginning, it's like, I don't want to do this. And in the old days so I just didn't do it. But nowadays, if I say to myself, well, I don't really want to do that, it's really kind of, and if I just go ahead and say, no, let this guy up here shut up for a little while and let me just try this new thing. And daggone, if it doesn't make me feel like a better person, it makes me feel like I'm reacting better, it makes me feel like I'm more connected, more authentic, like you were talking about earlier. So I've rambled on long enough here. Allow our host and host's wife to pop in.
Oh, why not?
The host is with the mostest.
Well, some great points here. What a great discussion.
Yeah. One of them is healthy detachment. Healthy
detachment, huge, right? Our clients with repetitive behavior cellular regression, for our research and our work in that, anyone who makes a conscious choice to do or not do something and fails to follow up on it 2 or more times is a repetitive behavior. And that's what we help them with, where we help them go back and find an amnesic type memory that triggers that continuous repeat. And once it does, it stops repeating. So and allows a lot of people who trigger regularly to start understanding themselves, and even more have empathy for people who are dealing with similar issues. Their personality, their outlook on both themselves, their family.
Yeah, empathy for themselves, big time.
Right. The environment around them, the people around them seem to change. Now, why is that? Well, you change, everybody else is going to change, good or bad.
Energy, other people are forced to change theirs.
Yeah, it's neither good or bad. It's a learning experience either way, but it's powerful when you reach that point where you can really connect with somebody as human beings, not as the boss or the waitress or the server or whatever.
Well, they're not even connected to themselves, so they get connected to themselves and can really connect with others.
Yeah, and like John said, the curtain. You're up there. Congratulations for being up there, but you're not better than I am.
Yeah, exactly.
And when I'm up there, I'm just glad that I am up there.
More grateful than feeling superior.
Right. Absolutely.
Right. Yeah, I agree. So I don't really have anything. Ashok, how about you? Back to you.
Yeah, back to me. So thank you. I'm going to come up with a term called future self-empathy. And I think we're all kind of circling around that idea. And what that means is that you've heard the phrase, if you could go back and tell your 10-year-old self what advice would you, or your 15, whatever, why not do it the opposite way? If you can put yourself forward 5 or 10 years, what would that version of you say to you right now to help you with the way you are? And if empathy is perspective taking, outside of yourself, of somebody else, why not take a perspective outside of yourself for your future self? Because what clutters our mind is our present state of mind. And whether it's OCD or just chatter or our present state of mind or any kind of trauma issue, we tend to ruminate and regurgitate and ruminate over the same ideas over and over. And how do you create change? By doing and thinking and doing anything different. Yeah. And so I get my clients to think about future self-empathy regularly and setting down,
I've never heard of that.
Look at their future self to help their present self. You know what? It works.
Yeah, thank you. That's such a great point. That's awesome that you're doing that. There was a guy, he was up on stage talking, and he goes, yeah, so like, I don't feel like making the coffee, you know, for the morning, getting all that set up the night before. So I started saying, thank you last night, David, when I'd do it. And then in the morning I go, thank you last night, David. That was his little hack. Stina Marie, too bad she's not on there. She's got major brain hacks. Right, Jenny?
But it's the same with us. I mean, one of the things about being married to an interior designer is that you can't leave anything laying around in the wrong place. I mean, if you move something on the desk, if you move something on the desk, Susan's like this. You know, she knows exactly where it's supposed to go, and it's not supposed to go here. It's supposed to go back where it belongs. So it's interesting because when I was younger, I just didn't pay attention. I'd leave a towel here, didn't make the bed, or I'd put this over here. And finally, I picked this up right after we got married about, I don't know, it took me about 35 years. Yeah. It takes me a little while to learn stuff. So, I finally realized that having a place that's neat and doing the work, like making the coffee the night before or doing these things, folding up the blankets instead of just leaving them on the sofa or whatever it might be, you walk in the room, you feel better. And if you don't carry all this baggage around from the past, when you enter a new environment, you feel better because you're not dragging these judgments and anger and resentments along with you all day long. So you can keep using the past as your judgment center for the present, which is, everybody uses the past to tell them what's going to happen. You knock a glass off the table, you're pretty sure it's going to fall and break because that's what it always does. But we can break that habit of sort of, at least in behavior. I can't tell you how many times people who have known me a long time have said, well, I'm really surprised you didn't say something back, or give them a glib or a sarcastic comment. And I thought, it's just, it's not worth it anymore. It's not worth it to me to hurt my behavior. And it's not worth, I certainly don't want to put somebody on the offensive. So what do you got there, Ashok?
It's the three monkeys. From an empathy perspective, the only monkey that gets it right is the middle one. Because sometimes you have to hold what you want to say until you've heard it. You have to listen. You have to look. You have to listen. But sometimes you have to hold your opinion until you've had an understanding. The only time when you're actually empathizing with someone intensely is ask questions to understand more. And once you start to make an assumption before you understand what someone else is going through, they're going to begin to pull away from you because you're already giving them advice or describing their situation. And there might be a huge piece of information that they have yet to tell you that you kind of blocked that. So for me, empathy is really a very, very patient process. Looking, listening, and feeling and entering someone's space and really holding your tongue to give them advice or to try and fix that situation until you ask that question, do you feel like I've understood you adequately at this point? And the person will either say yes or no, and you can always ask more.
I love that.
Yeah, asking somebody if I have gotten this right. I remember the first time I said, and trust me, this didn't come out of me. This came out of a good friend of mine who was a minister. And he said, why don't you just go home and ask Susan how you could be a better husband? And it was like, what? Kind of thing. So I went home and asked her, and guess what? She had a couple of things to say about how I could be a better husband. But these are questions that I don't think I've ever had anybody suggest for me before. How could I be a better parent? All of a sudden I started realizing, how could I be a better coworker, boss, board member, friend, anything. But these are things that nobody said, you know what, you should always challenge it. Challenge your behavior. Challenge it. Are you doing what you think you're going to do? And the reality is, as soon as you start asking these questions, I guarantee you these other people have plenty of things to tell you. Plenty of things to tell you.
That also happened with your girls after your divorce, and they come over and you're like complaining to the same guy. It's like, yeah, they don't even hug me. And it's like, so like, what do you do? And like, maybe get down to their level and open your arms. I mean, just those simple little things, right?
Right. And for some reason, I thought they should be the first person to act, not versus me.
Right.
And the thing I've learned over time is the person is sort of the superior in the group. This is what I tell bosses and managers. You've got to be the person to act first. If you're expecting an employee to walk in your office and say, I don't understand what you're talking about, that's never going to happen. And so for me, I had to be the one exerting the emotional connection to the girls so they realized it was a safe place to run up and hug me. So it's just continuous learning, I guess, more than anything else. But I can remember if I hadn't been paying attention in those days, I don't think it would have connected with me that the reason I started getting hugging is because I changed my behavior.
So true. Jenny?
Yes, I love that when we step out of duality, we recognize that we have everything inside of ourselves. And sometimes we work with clients who say, that's just not who I am. I'm just not an empathetic person. And we get to recognize that you have not yet explored that part of you. So it is a journey of discovery and growth. And also what comes to me are the people who fear situations that are emotional, and they fear, and I'd say most of us do sometimes, because when we meet a person who is depressed, who lost a loved one, something happened in their life, and they are expressing their anger or their anxiety or whatever, that we're so deeply connected that it is going to play on chords in ourselves, in our own inner space. And so often we meet them. The reason why we're not listening is because we're so busy trying to handle and deal with what's coming up inside of us. And I'd say that's very human. That's something that all of us face. And that's why it's so healthy as a leader to do our inner work so that these situations feel more comfortable. Like we've done our inner work of soothing ourselves and meeting ourselves and filling our own cup. And we are able to be present with them and check ourselves by the door for a little bit and just listen and not give those unasked for advices that we so easily do. And that's a process. It's not from one day to another. It's steps in the right directions, and I think we're all on the way. Mm-hmm.
I love it. And Jenny, you've talked, and you and I have had lots of conversations about filters, and that's what I love about Ashok's work is the filter. Like you're listening to someone like through their filter, through their eyes, and the other person starts to really make sense to you based on who they are, not on your filters and your opinion. And I just, that's the learning that I get from Ashok and really appreciate.
I just want to quickly share an analogy. When Jenny said, once you get your cup filled, when I'm talking to somebody, I imagine I'm standing on a beautiful beach. I'm in the water, and the water's up around my knees. The water around me is their conversation they're having with me. Their soul is the rest of the ocean. And so never forget that. It's not the little beach that you're in. Who they are, the rest of them is the rest of the ocean. And that's why when people say, what are we going to talk about today? I say, don't worry. We have a lot to talk about. And that creates a sense of safety. Because when people think the conversation being over means that you're over understanding them, or that's it, we've got end of story kind of thing, that really closes doors. That closes that curtain that John was talking about as well. There's always more to a person, because our souls are as bigger than the ocean.
I
I
love
love it. I got that chuckle of Jenny's work with the beach.
Yes, that is such a strong connection. And also, I love that it's about holding space. It's not about me performing or fixing. It's about me holding that space for people to self-reflect. And when they do, it's amazing. I also say, like, we have a universe, and I love the ocean. Like, there's an ocean of wisdom and knowledge and understanding. And it's about being there with them as they dare to take that leap, to dive in and know themselves closer and find that confidence and trust.
Yeah, and Jenny, speak to what you do on the beach too, because that's fun.
Oh, sure. Yes, I love when I do my expansion coaching. I love to share how we were all born into this life with a beach of our own. And when I think of the beach, it's my freedom. Like, I'll stand there and I'll just raise my arms and I'll be me. I don't care who sees me. I'll shout out to the skies and just be happy to be me. And it's my creativity, my needs, my passion, my view of things. And then sometimes people come into our lives. So it's very much connected to empathy, Linda. I see why you made the connection. People come into our lives and it's like our inner self is saying maybe no to something that they're offering, but we hear ourselves saying, okay. And so it's like we start compromising and we make that beach smaller. And then there's a longing in our bodies telling us, yes, I want to do this. And we hear ourselves saying, no, okay, I won't. And we make our space smaller and smaller and smaller. It's like we're drawing circles in that sand. And we make our space so small. And with like the kind of empathy that I was in, I felt so responsible. I felt like I was everywhere because I was being responsible for everyone. And then I recognized that I was not being responsible for my own well-being. So I started doing the inner work of authenticity and honoring myself and allowing my yes to be yes and my no to be no, to reclaim, to push out those circles and reclaim that beach and find pleasure and enjoy the flow of my life again. So that's my expression of the beach. Thank you, Linda.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching us today. We certainly appreciate it. We're hoping that you get something out of our discussion around empathy today. And I just want to bring in the audience and for those of you who are listening, this isn't I'm just going to do it. It takes focus. It takes presence. And it takes starting out baby steps, just smiling at somebody, acknowledging their humanity, and then they will acknowledge you. And then you get the behavioral mirror effect. The more you do it, the more people are inclined to do that. For your leaders out there that we've been talking about today, for the most part, it's the same thing. Smile more. How's it going? And listen. Listen to what they say. How's it going is a time killer in any conversation until they trust you. Then it is, how's it going? Well, boss, here's what's going on in my life and stuff right now, but I'm doing okay today, or I'm not real feeling, I'm not fully on board with what we're doing right now. I think I need more explanation. Well, let's talk about it. Hey, Bob, come on over here. You're the tech on this. Let's us have a conversation. So now, in another day, in another situation, the young person that you just said, how's it going with, is more inclined to walk up to you and say, I've got questions. And you can answer it. That's what empathy is all about. That's the bigger picture. But it doesn't start out that way. Okay? you get a reputation for being an empathic person, somebody who cares about the people they work with, not the people that work for them. Okay, and that's a powerful thing to do. Linda?
Yeah, I agree. I love it. How about Ashok? You get some final wrap-ups in your...
Yeah, I think people describe me in certain ways, but I am a servant to empathy. I'm studying it. I'm learning it. I'm trying to teach it as much as I can. I'm a disciple of it. And I think the minute someone says that they're an expert or they've got it, that's dangerous. I think I believe in continuous lifelong learning. My soul is still growing. And the more I connect with other people and give them what I believe is what they might need from me, which is not just permission, but freedom to be who they are. When they can take that, not just in our relationship, but most importantly, their relationship with themselves.
Good stuff.
Very, very
good stuff. Jenny, any final thoughts?
Wonderful conversation, and I love your work, Ashok. So just a pleasure having you here, and I feel complete.
Good stuff, John.
Yes. No, I feel like I learned much more than I gave in this particular session. So I have to thank Ashok for that, because the idea of asking my present self, but asking my future self how I would treat me when I get there, kind of thing, is a wonderful concept. I hadn't really given that much thought before. So not only will I do this, I'll pass this on to family members and grandchildren. The earlier you can learn this, it sounds to me like the better you're going to be off. Yeah.
Yeah, and children start out this way.
Yeah.
They don't know the difference. The filters come from experience, and reinforcing what it's like and the responsibilities around being just a human person, just being a nice person, more so than just being nice at church when you're sitting in a pew, or being nice because mom just said be nice or something like that. It's much more involved, because our children are going to mirror what we do, and that's important. Linda?
Yep, I'm good.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening in today. And Ashok Bhattacharya, thank you very much. This was killer good. Really loved it. Thanks again. And thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for watching. Bye-bye for now.